Saving the Storyteller from AI Part 4 Flatland Why AI Cannot Dream of Electric Sheep. This is part of a series on AI and the writer, read to you by Hazel Denhart. Part 3 traced the long arc of logic, coming to be crowned our only form of valid intelligence and what we lost in that coronation. We saw how Descartes' founding premise went largely unchallenged, how Jung alone crossed the threshold into the unconscious far beyond logic's reach, and how the market sieve has been quietly doing the ego's work for a century by filtering out the transcendent, which always necessitates humility and hard work, and leaving us instead in a philosophical famine. The AI quest for sudden insight. A recent Cambridge University study revealed that AI has scared the daylights out of British writers, half of whom fear AI will soon replace them. Hold on to your pins, Britannia. AI cannot replace you. Not soon, not ever. But AI engineers are not going to give up without a fight. It will be entertaining. Cue Charles Schultz's Snoopy battling it out with a lawn chair. This fight centers on AI's pursuit of the human capacity for sudden insight, thus putting them squarely in the shoes of the medieval charlatans slandering the spiritual path of alchemy with delusions of turning lead into gold. In The Courage to Create, existential psychologist Rollo May spoke to moments of gestalt that we've all experienced when a sudden burst of insight instantly solves a difficult problem. An idea arrives complete, absolute, and undeniable in a bolt of glory. This is no exhausting, careful, step-by-step piecing together of a conclusion through hard logic. Rather, it arrives in an energizing flash of devastatingly beautiful insight. Receiving the insight is passive. Applying it takes intense work that, once complete, transforms the thinker. For Einstein, the theory of relativity came at the speed of light, whole and complete, in a moment of sudden clarity that transformed him from an unknown patent clerk into the world's most famous scientist. Translating the insight into the hard logic of mathematics for others to understand took years. In the long run of time, instantaneous insight turns out to be right, but it can be seriously unpleasant at first. For me, it inevitably happens with a disorienting realization that some of my characters are not at all who I planned for them to be. The gestalt demands a change, one I try to resist, until writer's block resists my resistance and the story goes on strike until I surrender. Then, poof, the characters shift into who they know they really are. Magic is unlocked. The story surges to life and starts writing itself, leaving me as a bystander in the margins. It's always a sudden shock, and it's always the character whom I dislike the most, who I cast as the villain who turns out to be the hero. No, I cry, pushing back my chair. Yuck! No, 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 no. I will have nothing to do with this blasphemy. The change triggers all of the other characters to also change. And not only are they not upset about it, but they are also celebrating. My disgust quickly passes, and I grow fond of the prodigal character who forgives me. Sudden insight indeed blasts away writer's block, but it also opens the long road of rewriting before the final punctuation mark is resolved. The gift of gestalt comes from the unconscious, something AI does not have and cannot even observe. Just as lead does not have the elemental structure to turn into gold, AI does not have the circuitry, architecture, or programming potential for the gestalt bringing forth stories powerful enough to guide humanity along the uncharted edges of the social frontier. Transformative stories are the gold humanity seeks. We need to recognize AI for what it is, an unenlightened, gold-lusting alchemist wannabe. It is not some alien intelligence arriving from the future to destroy or save us. It is a great repository of our own human logical intelligence, precise, efficient, coherent, and profoundly incapable of depth. This makes it the perfect home for the ego. Everything AI produces is a replication with new alignment of everything we've already put out in the world of thought through language. While AI can imitate writing by rearranging words to appear new, it cannot create the stories we crave because those stories are born in the same place our dreams come from at night. Transcendent, deeply moving stories do not emerge from step-by-step reasoning. They erupt from the unconscious. AI has no circuitry to move off its two-dimensional XY axis and comprehend the ever-flowing fountain of sudden insight. The human mind versus classical and quantum computing. Nonetheless, AI and cognitive scientists are pondering how to replicate sudden insight with quantum computing. First, we have to get to quantum computing. We aren't far. We have recently arrived in the foggy border region between classical and quantum computing. To understand what this means, Seth Lloyd offers a whimsical library metaphor. In this example, I'll be the librarian. Classical computing operates in a linear fashion. As a librarian in this world, I search for the answer to a question by moving through the library aisle by aisle, row by row, and book by book, opening one book after another to make a yes or no decision as to whether the book in hand can answer the question. This is our familiar world, where I'm only in one place at a time, moving linearly, one book at a time, and making tens of thousands of no decisions before arriving at yes and finding the answer. In the spooky quantum realm, I am not alone. There are as many ghostly replicas of me as there are books in the library. Each of tens of thousands of me occupies every aisle, holding every book at the exact same moment. Instead of choosing no, these me ghosts calculate the probability of every book in every hand, then cancel out the ones with very low probability. For example, the chemistry books in the hundreds of hands of all the me ghosts have very low probability of answering a question on Kierkegaard's philosophy of advertising. So all those books are canceled out of the search. In this world, low probability is considered noise to be canceled out the way noise-canceling headphones diminish the hubbub in a room. As the low-value books are silenced, the probability of the correct book grows louder. It's a bit like the game of you're getting hotter, you're getting colder. At some point, as I zero in on the loudest book, all of the me ghost librarians holding all of the other books collapse into the loudest one, the one with the highest value or the greatest probability of being correct. Of course, this breaks the rules of logic and physics, which excites researchers to no end. Classical computing is like going the long way around the barn to solve x plus 1 equals 100 by starting with 1 and trying every number for x from 1 on until the correct number is found at 99. By contrast, quantum computing is more like using algebra to cancel the extra term. By placing -1 on both sides of the equation to instantly have the answer x equals 99. Sequential answers are slow, instant ones are fast. The difference is that with algebra, you get a definite answer. With quantum computing, we only ever get a very strong probability of a correct answer. It might be 99.99999% likely, but it will never be 100%. Some cognitive scientists suggest that our brains work like quantum computers, holding on to all possibilities of thought until the very last moment when they collapse into a moment of sudden insight. The fringe theory of Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose suggests perhaps microtubules carry qubits in an interplay of atoms in the brain. Whatever the outcome, it is at least several decades away before the probability values collapse into a single answer. Nope, they are hallucinating on an overdose of logic. Welcome to Flatland. Quantum computing might help AI make faster stories, but it will never help them make better. AI programs already churn out stories by taking language patterns ciphered from specific genres and pouring them into classical formulas for structure. The difference between an AI story and one written by a master is the difference between harvesting fruit from a live lemon tree at the peak of the season compared to picking out a plastic replica laden with dust at a thrift store. The vibrancy of life is missing. An even better metaphor comes from a 142-year-old story, Edwin Abbott's 1884 novella, Flatland. Here, in a perfect rejoinder to the sterility of the age of science and technology, inhabitants in Flatland live in a two-dimensional universe, existing on a flat plane and only able to see or understand what is directly in front or beside them, with no conception of up or down. Voila! You have just entered the world of supercomputing at its most super-duper-duper-duper-duper advanced level, where it can still never free itself from the flatlands of pure logic to reach the emotional and intuitive heights and depths of the unconscious, where rise such voices as Shakespeare, Rachmaninoff, or August Wilson. Let's not continue to be duped by the super-duper promises. Yes, many of AI's limitations will soon be solved with extraordinary advancements in circuitry and training, but the promise-filled marketing hype that it will change everything drowns out one critical point. For all the technological innovation, AI will never be able to address our relationship to the unconscious, which remains the most urgent problem of the present era. Yes, AI can stimulate emotion just as cloud formations, birds, and grandmother's cookies do, but it cannot guide us in what to do with that stimulated energy. AI can mimic what poses for meaning, but it cannot render the depth we seek. We are left to gaze into a two-dimensional mirror, hoping for wisdom, but only finding again and again our own reflection staring back. What we fail to realize is that the depth we seek is already within ourselves. In Part 5, we'll follow that reflection where it actually leads. Watch a Flatland machine put on the costume language of oracles and apocalypses and see what the willful unconscious does when it is ignored.